Hello everyone and welcome to BIMIT, the channel where you can learn about BIM, building information modeling, structural engineering, structural design, parametric design, and IT. In this video we're going to talk about tekla structures. It's going to be the first of many videos where we're going to explain tekla structures, how to use it, and the mind and the idea behind it. We don't want to teach you just how to do things like this is that. We want to teach you to understand tekla structures so you're able to do other projects that you're going to face. If you're a student, if you're a professional in the field, if you're an architect or an engineer, this is going to help you. So without any further ado, we're going to start. Here is tekla structure I have already installed on my computer. If you want to download tekla structure, I'm going to put the link in the description. It can be found in the official website, and you can get an educational license if you're a student, and so on. So without any further ado, I'm just gonna click. I have downloaded the finished environment, and the role will be fin all, and the configuration will be fin all. There are other configuration here. I'm just gonna go for full configuration, full role also full. And what we're gonna do, we're just gonna go with OK. Before that, if you have a different, you can download it also a different environment depending on where you are. If you are, I don't know, in Russia, in the United States, in France, there are environments for your country. Just download it and then click on it and start with OK. It's not going to change much. So OK. So we're here in tekla structures 2022. In this page, we will, in this window that is open, we can see the environments here, the role, the configuration again, and we can look at the file, the recent file that we had. We can think about, we can see all the models that we have created, share model. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. And new, we are going to create a new project, which the name is going to be lesson number 1. So lesson 1 already exists because I had a lesson. I'm just going to do this and lesson number 1. This is where it's going to be saved, single user, and the rest we're going to talk about that later. So I'm going to go ahead and click on create. Okay, once you have created the project, this is what it's going to look like. So what you want with the viewport, you want to extend it so that it becomes big, like that. What do we see here? We see obviously the viewport. This is where you're going to see anything that you're going to model, whether it's a column, a beam, whatever connection you're going to have is going to be here. What else do we see here? We see a panel here at the bottom. We're going to talk about that a little bit further, but you can see the snapping here if you're used to AutoCAD. There are a few snapping tools here. Here also some selection tools and many others. We are going to look at this user interface as well. If you want to save a project, you can hit the menu here, and you're just going to save as. If you want to print your drawings, open a project that was already created, create a new one, and export, imports, and so on, many others. So what we're going to do now is that we're going to go again here, and we're going to look at this interface shortly. Basically, you have different tools here that can be used. They're grouped. On top here, there's steel. If you want to create a steel column, model a steel column, you just click on this one, and you're going to have a steel column, beam, and so on, as well as for concrete, if you want to model these elements of concrete and others. We're going to talk about that once we get into it. Edits such as moving, cutting, copying, and many others, rotating. All of these things will be in edit. View, we'll talk about the view, the sections, and so on, and many others, drawings and others we're going to talk about a little bit later. Once we look at this 3D view, we already have actually, to make this view activated, because now I can scroll, but nothing is happening. I'm scrolling, nothing is happening. But to make this active, I need to click on the view. Once I click on it, I have this frame that I'm just going to do this. I have this frame that is kind of orange. I don't know what it's look like in your on your computer, but on mine it's orange. And this basically shows me the view where I am and that it's active. Okay, I can now zoom out and zoom in by scrolling with the middle button of my computer. I can move the project like this, right, by clicking on the middle button of my mouse and moving the mouse left and right. What else can I do? I can also rotate by hitting the control button, pressing the control button and the middle button of my mouse, and I can rotate, right? And this is how you rotate. But if you want to be exact, right? When we talk about rotation, we always need to talk about the center of rotation. What is it rotating around, right? Because you might want to rotate around, you may have a few columns here, you want to rotate around that specific column. You're not going to do this, right? You can obviously do this, but you're not going to have the level of detail as you might want to have. So what you want to do is you want to change the center of rotation. And the center of rotation right now is seen here by this little circle here and in tekla structure, and this is the center of rotation for now by default. If I want to change it, there are a few ways. The first way will be to hit Control and R. Once you hit Control and R, you have this. You can now select where you want to rotate your drawings, your model around. So let's say I want to rotate around that point right there. I'll click right there, and now I'm rotating around it, right? And if I zoom in, right, I'm zooming it around it, right? And the other way to change the rotation center point will be by hitting V. Once you click on V, you can also find the intersection of the point that is right there, right? Here is the rotation center point. Great. So now what do we know in tekla structures? We already know how to move, how to zoom in, how to zoom out, how to rotate, basically the basics of tekla structures. Now what we want is to open the plan view. To open the plan view, because now I'm in the 3D view, right? If I had a building here, I would see everything. And what I want to do is that I want to open the plan view of this entire thing. To do that, I will have to click. Basically, the plan view is the top view, the view from the top of this plane, right? From so we have X here and Y going on that direction. So basically, the plan view will come from the top, from Z, looking down for this 3D view. So if I hit Control P, Control P, Control P, P for plane, right? Once I do that, I will open the plane view and I can basically see the same thing, but in the plane view from the top. So here we have Y and X and Z. Obviously, as I was saying, we're looking from the top, looking down. And this is what we see. What do we see here? Basically, we see the grid lines. The grid lines, they may look different depending on the environment that you have installed, right? If you have installed, let's say, environments, let's say the Russian environment, you may have different letters here, for example, and so on. We can still view our rotation center point, and the grid line number and the grid line along the y-axis are letters in this case, which obviously can be changed. One thing I need to pay attention to is that the grid lines are starts at 0, 0, 0 at the origin of coordinates, right? X and Y, Z up. So the grid line starts here by default, right? You can obviously move that, and I'm going to show that a little bit later. You can move it up, left, right, as you want. So the intersection of A and 1 is basically here. If you open your tekla structures and for some reasons you don't have this, first of all, you don't have the viewport, you need to go to View, right? And you go New View and Basic View, and then you create the view that you want. Basic, in this case, it's going to be X and Y, this one, and then it will appear. I'm not going to create because I already have this view here. And then if you don't have the grid lines by default, you can find them, right? A short way to find them, grid lines, right? And actually, I'm just going to hit grid, and you're just going to create add grid lines or create rectangular grid lines. Then you will be able to modify them. Great. So I'm going to delete that. And let's talk about these grid lines. Let's talk about how we can modify them, let's say, according to your project, right? Because in your project, you're not going to have this one. Let's talk about the distances, how we can set them up, and so on. So again, there are two ways to modify them. Actually, one way, but two ways to get to what we want is going to be to hit on the grid line once. Once you hit on it, you selected it, right? You select the grid lines. Then you go over here to properties. Once you click that, you open the properties of your grid lines, right? The other way, I'm going to close this one, which is going to be short. I'm going to escape, right? Is going to be to click on the grid line twice. And I open already the settings, the properties, which obviously you can make smaller or larger. We're going to keep it like this so we can see this, but later I'm going to make it smaller like this so that we can see, we can have a bigger view here. Okay, let's talk about the coordinates, right? Dragging it like that. Let's talk about the coordinates. X coordinates, Y coordinates, Z coordinates. Let's start with the X coordinate. We're just going to delete all these numbers, right? Delete, delete, delete. The yellow shows what you have modified, but nothing is going to change here before you hit the modify button here. Or if you basically, if you want to change this, you just click on modify after changing, or you just hit enter on your keyboard, enter, and everything changes. Now I can zoom in. Again, I had to click on it, zoom in, and what am I going to see? I have at 0, 0, one grid line, right? This is 0, 0, going through 0, 0, and this other grid line going 0, 0, and another one coming out of Z, but we cannot see it in this view. I'm going to show the other view a little bit later. Now, let's start by adding grid lines to our project. So it's going to be straightforward. You just go back here to coordinate X. The first one is the first grid line. The second one, to create the second one, you need to hit on space. I'm going to hit space bar, and I'm going to add the distance from which the grid line is going to be according to the first one. So basically 3,000 in millimeters, 3,000, enter. And I have a new grid line, the second one, which is separated by 3,000. It's at 3,000 from the origin, right? So it's at 3,000 from 0. If I want to add another grid line, at 3,000, it's going to be at 3,000 from the 3,000 here. It's not from 0. So if I hit 3,000, so it's another grid line at 3,000 from 0 here. Now here, what I have here is that I have two grid lines at 3,000, separated by 3,000. So one grid line and the other grid line separated from 3,000, and another grid line here. But to remove the confusion, I'm just going to remove that and make 3,000 again, right? That was the first one, and let's change the other one. Let's make it 5,000. 5,000, 5 meters. So the other grid line is going to be created at 5,000 from this grid line, right? And so on. If I want to add another grid line, 6,000, there's going to be another grid line created there, and so on. Now, if I want to have a certain number of grid lines that are separated at a certain distance, I'm just going to go here, let's say 5,000. I want to have two grid lines here that are separated with 5,000 distance. So I'm going to hit on two grid lines, or let's just delete everything here, and let's say I can delete everything here and hit OK. I have my 0 origins. I'm going to add two grid lines that are separated at 5,000. So I want two grid lines times 5,000. What does it mean? I have the one grid line that I just created, the second grid line, 5,000 is this distance, and the other distance is 5,000. I want to add four grid lines separated at 3,500. 3,500. There you go. This is the first, the second, the third, and the fourth. This is 3,500, 3,500, 3,500, 3,500. Four grid lines separated 3,500. I can also add another grid line here, but I'm not gonna. If I want to add another grid line here over here, there's a somewhere here. Let's say it's 500 from this one. What I need to do is to hit space, obviously, minus 500. Once you click on minus 500, you have another grid line that appears here. So this distance is 3,000 and this is 500. But what we want to know, what we want to pay attention to, is the order. So this grid line was created before this grid line. So the number for this grid line will be 7, obviously, and this one will be 8. So if I just go to the label, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Let me just add 7, 8, enter, and this is what we're doing. So before going there, I'm just going to copy the same that is here to the Y because it's going to be the same, right? The principle is the same. Here we have those grid lines. Let's delete the minus 500 in Y direction. Do that. And here we have our grid lines. Let's talk about the Z-axis. Let's also add some elevation there, 3,600. Okay, and one more. Yeah, we cannot see them obviously right now. We're going to talk about that in a minute. The reason why we cannot see that is because we are looking at the XY plane. In order for us to see these elevation, we need to look at the XZ plane. So like this direction. But I don't have that view right now. Even if I went to the 3D view, I wouldn't be able to see that. I wouldn't be able to see that. So in order for me to do that, I will have to create this view here. And remember, to create a view, we just go to View, New View, Basic View, and I will hit on XZ plane. This is what I want. The X and Z plane. So I'm going to click on Z, XZ, and create. There you go. This is the view. I have created this view, and we can see the grid lines that we had here. 3,600, 7,200. We can put 8,000 there. And we see how things change. But after changing that, I realized that the 7,200 is still the same and 3,600 the same, even though I have changed it to 8,000. The reason why this is the same is because of the label. The label is just the name that you put here. In fact, this grid is exactly at 8,000. So the label for the Z grid lines is shown here. Right? So 0 plus 0 is this one, plus 3,600 is this one, plus 7,200 is the third one. So if I want to change this and I want to put it, let's say top, it's going to change to top. This is just the label. It's not the real coordinate. The coordinate is over here. So basically, as we can see for X, the first one, let's go back to the view. So to get back to that view, I need to hit here, Window, and I will go to the other view. And I'm back to this view. So for the first one, on the x-axis, this is the this one is the label for the first one. The second will be the second from these two here, and the third will be the second from this two, the third, the fourth, and so on. So if I had only two grid lines here, 0 and 3000. If I only had 0 and 2000, I will have the first is 0 and the second is 3000. If I want to add 4000, the fourth will be the third will be at 4000, and I can change the name as you wish, but obviously it's usually with numbers on the x-axis. The same for the y-axis. The first one is A, the second one is B, and so on. It will be the same for the z-axis. If I open the z view here, the first one is 0, second one 30,600, and the other one top. And I'm just gonna get back to 7 plus 7,200. There you go. Actually, it's 8,000, right? We change it to 8,000. Right. So now we have the exact the label matching what we have there. Great. So what we know now is that we know how to create grid lines in Tekla structures depending on our project. If you have different grid lines in your project, you can change them on the x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis for the elevation. You can label them, give them the number that you want, and so on. Here, let's go back to the view one here, this view. Remember to get to the plane view, which is going to be looking from the top, right, in the z direction, but looking down, we will have to hit Control P, right, plane, and I'm looking from the top to down. So here we have this view, the plane view of the 3D. If we want to have the plane view as well for this view, right, the Z, XZ plane, we need to click as well on Control P, and we have our plane view, which is going to be also very useful if you want to look at, let's say, there was a foundation here and a connection between the column and the foundation. You want to see what's happening there, or whatever things that you want to see here. This view can be useful. So let's go back to the other view. Yeah. So let's continue with the grid lines. What we have here in the properties, rectangular grid lines. Remember, we were talking about creating rectangular grid lines. So let's talk about the line extensions. What does that mean? What is this? This 2000. What is this? Basically, these are these lines that comes outside, right? These lines, their distance from the point of intersection in the x-axis, in the y-axis, and also z-axis. In my case, the left obviously will be for x, right? And right will be for x as well. Below, what we have here below, it's going to be for the y-axis, and above will be for the y-axis as well as the z-axis. So if I want to change this and I want to put 0, you don't need to hit millimeters to write millimeters. This will be 0 from the left. And if I want to have 0 on the right as well, 0 and Control, right? I'm going to get back to 2000, depending on how you like it. Okay, so the line extension is basically for the extension that is here. These are the line extensions. So I'm going to close that one. The next one is origin. Let's close also this one and the coordinates. Origin, what is this? Remember I said that the grid lines start at 0, 0, 0. This is where they start. But if you want to offset the grid lines from the origin, 0, 0, 0, what you're going to do is that, let's say I want to start it at, let's say 5,000 from the y direction, 5,000. From 0, 0, my grid lines are going to start at 5,000. This distance will be 5,000 from the origin. So in my case, I'm going to put it 0, and you can do it for x, z, and so on. Magnetic grid plane, we'll talk about that a little bit later. And the color, you can change the color of the grid lines, the font size, right, depending on the color and the font size and the font color, and depending on what are the requirements for you. So if you hit here, you can choose the color. Let's go red, and just hit OK. What is that? Yeah, modify, and the grid lines will be red. In my case, I will get back to black, which is the standard one, and modify, and everything will get back to normal. Great. So here we have our grid lines that we created. Remember, we have this other view here. If you want to have this view and this view shown in this space, what you're going to do is that you're going to select either the horizontal tile or the vertically tile. I mean, tile vertically. So basically, here you have the explanation and how you can do this, and so on. So let's try with the horizontal one. If I click here, I'm going to have this view, XY view and XZ view, right? And I can click Control P, and I can rotate around this, as well as here, Control P, and I can rotate around here. If I don't want to have it horizontally placed, I can change this to vertically and I have this. This could be useful at some point if you want to see uh, different part of your building at the same time when you're modeling. Great. So in my case, I'm going to close this because I don't need this and extend this back. So we have learned so far how to do this, how to create grid lines, how to change the label, how to change the line extension, the color of the grid lines, and we've talked about the user interface shortly, and this frame orange here, which shows that the view is the one that is active. Uh, and that will be it for this video. If you have any questions, please write in the comments. We will try to answer. I'm working with a group of guys, so the next video, it might not be me, it might be somebody else talking. It might as well be me again, and we will continue like that. If you have any questions, please write in the comments. If you like the video, please put a like in the video, and also don't forget to subscribe to our channel to be notified once we are dropping the next video in this series. That's it for me, and I'll see you in the next video where we're going to talk about columns, placements, and others. Thank you, and goodbye.